Did I just jinx it? Maybe. Or maybe it's just how things go sometimes. As we got into April, the sounds of Kamijima got louder, pulsing like an endless source of life. From this month on, there was this distinguished feeling of tropics in the air. Humidity had arrived, and people started to expect hotter days. My journey took me back to the places I've visited during my first travels in Japan, making the first half of April somewhat of a catch-up with old friends. As April had come to life, I was on the run for Tsurugi, a town or area on Shikoku, within a valley similar to my home valley, just wider and more spacious, with a beautiful strong river in the middle of it. Once I've travelled over the bridges of the Setonaikai Park, I was soon greeted by luscious green grasses, farmlands and wide open sky framed by hills in dark forest shades. Living on an island leaves me in awe of these huge masses of salt waters and gives me this feeling of an endless source of fluid energies, which constantly change and inspire me. But naturally, as soon as I approach a valley like this, with flowing waters where I can see the grounds, and the forests that summon you to wander through them, I notice that my own being starts to sink into more earthy, solid grounds, and I feel awfully held. In Tsurugi itself, I stayed at a guest house called Uedaya, run by my friends Sachiko and Kohe, a couple of many artistic talents like music, illustration, crafting, and an endless source of energy, even with so many kids. Well, let's say they normally get their sleep on tables after a meal, but they got the energy. So after Tsurugi, I met some friends in Osaka, finally catching a glimpse of its city life. The food and the company was good, the chats deep and yet light, whilst our time together made it not only more playful, also a bit easier to learn Japanese with motivation and fun. And then rainy season kicked in.
Why? Because absolute none.
This time, arriving at Sashima, I was welcomed by Mie, one of the housekeepers of Shiomi House, a guest house on Kamijima's island, which sustains on the help of occasional helpers who pass through, self-made goods, and the company of stray cats. Here, I did not only ease into usual house chores, cooking, and discovering the island, I also found somehow solitude in just being and providing for guests, providing a home whilst I myself was in a darker place in body and mind. And even if my thoughts were crowded, colored in darker shades, and I did not feel like myself, Shiomi's halls gave me cats for company, a piano to revive my love for music, and then as slowly April came to an end, I found new projects, carpentry-wise, in connection with people, with visitors around the islands, and my fellow housekeepers. Yet one feet at Shiomi house, the other one already on the run. 3 months of visa were over, so it was time for me to take the chance to go to Korea. This is the time where I summarize what happened for me, and at the same time where shit kind of hits the fan. During this time, my creativity blossomed, yet my grief got bottled up within me. Since I had a new confrontation with death, I wasn't really facing it. I had to review how I managed sadness and grief, because my approach of putting everything into my head only causes migraines and is not sustainable at all. And with my body being flooded by heavy emotions, manifesting in stiffening it into a degree where stretching became awfully painful, I soon had to come to terms how unsustainable my emotional world was around those two emotions. Was, is, and still would be if I wouldn't face it. So I had to reconsider how to show up for myself, reshaping how I take a stand for myself, especially now that I want to take foot as a freelancer. Suddenly I felt myself being thrown back to my teens, fantasizing about an old factory with several levels, so many corners to build and hide, to discover, and an outrageous amount of creativity and hopefully lively people to fill the space with. And as we cleaned the stalls of Tsurugi's old wood factory, which belongs to the friends of Sachiko and Kohe, this new taste of inspiration got unlocked within me, which was at the same time very old. This would lead me right back at the end of May, when they had their first art and food market there, which I then happily joined. To give you a short look around, since it's, the owner of the wood factory is was quite shy about, so I just did it by myself. I wandered around and shall give you now a quick tour of everything. It's absolutely amazing, astonishing, inspiring. Yeah, it was wonderful. But in the growing silence within me, and as heavy-hearted artwork emerged, I got to work more on Kind Errors Volume 2 topics around trauma and destruction, but also had to reassess my goals, my living situation, and, practically speaking, my visa terms. To be reflected and looking back on things, they started to get more and more wobbly when I came back to Kamijima. It felt like I could not find the right balance. My body denied access and flexibility. My stress level was on an all-time high, and somehow things with Matt felt a bit different. And then at the end of May, conversations started to emerge about miscommunication, about our projects. Recentering, reassessing, clear goals. It felt like on a different level, and my emotions were rising like Hokusai's waves. Yet I could not pinpoint, entangled in feelings of trying to solve and fix things and be the anchor that I wanted to be, or always wanted to be, for my and other creative people's projects. And then right there on the spot, just a glimpse within my own shadow, it reappeared, my fixing part. And I thought I had given it enough attention and reconsideration. But apparently not. So Matt and his partner Momo came finally to terms after some long, intense talks, and my own fixer suddenly stopped and held its breath. It was clearly too much for them, having me as another project in their lives, and together we slowly unrolled the difficulties of being a friend and trying to make a project happen. Coming from an artsy background with people sparking for their ideas and literally just going for them, I may have seen Matt for what he wanted, yet not what his actual capacities were. Because people can forget that, I guess. We're not all in full knowledge of our abilities and capacities, especially when having other parties, like a family, involved. And as we got into the renovation of Matt's and Momo's house just before coming to new terms, the inner fixing part of mine released his breath. My body unclutched its tension, and as I write these lines, I'll let go of the initial ideas and start to realize I had to let go of so many things since I arrived here in Japan. But maybe, just maybe, that's a part I really do have to learn. In clear words, Matt and Momo were trying to reshape tourism on the islands, make it more sustainable, interconnected with outsiders, but also create through their collective somewhat a residency for artists. They still do want to create a vision, but by now, for me, this connection has become one of friends, not partners in crime, when it comes to this project. So since they won't be able to work together towards that visa I need, I'll go again into the journey of finding new pathways to navigate. And to go with the right time schedule here, after deciding it was a bit too much, or just within that action, that decision, I moved into another house, which Matt and Mama rented, but I could not really settle, as like a week later I moved out again. And as the next week followed, I found myself recalibrating and trying to make sense of me and the world. Yeah, with almost 2 months of immense ups and downs, I tried to take my time, recenter my body, and took comfort in what has been renovated so far. And to be honest, I guess there are so many more people I've connected with in Japan. And to put out that spark of hope, they make me look quite positively towards this journey. And also my experience for Japan as a working place. I'll step into the next chapters with courage and new or old homes. So since you are now up to date, that was quite a lot, I guess. I will focus in the next episode more on crafting. This will be hopefully a bit more present, since I want to focus on my skills as a carpenter and as an artist, and I will also maybe have a bit more time to reassess and find a new way to stay in Japan. And I will dive into waters of communication with work parties. Because so far that was a recurring lesson in my life, and I guess it's now part to really look at that, since I want to be self-employed and make this whole thing work. Yeah. So to finish this episode, I would say to the passions of starting from scratch. It is not always easy, but it is a sight to behold and an adventurous journey. Maybe even a mountain to conquer, or an ocean to be crossed. Let's see how we go on. See you soon.